Let's jump ahead Arizona State a little bit. Arizona State, 11-2 team. But they've only lost one game when Sam Leavitt is their quarterback. I'm not even going to give them the other loss because they had Jeff Sims as their quarterback. If anyone has watched Jeff Sims is terrible. I don't understand how he still has the job. He's not good. Nebraska just got better immediately once they replaced him with Dylan Raiola, who wasn't even that good. So, but Arizona State, listen, guys, I'm going to be straight up honest here. Texas should win this game. They should cover the spread. They're a better team than Arizona State. I actually think this is a step down in competition from Clemson, honestly. And it's hard because I don't want to be disrespectful, but I'm just being honest. So it is what it is. Gerald, what do you see in this team when you look ahead to Arizona State?
Yeah, I think you could say two things, right? You have to be able to hold multiple thoughts in your mind. Cam Scatabo is one of the best runners in the country, period, end of sentence. Like, Cam Scatabo is one of the best runners in the country. Texas is one of the best teams at stopping the run in the country, right? And Arizona State is not equipped, like you said, especially with their star wide receiver injured, not playing in this game. They're not built to beat Texas in a way that, again, Clemson is built to beat Texas, or not built to beat Texas, but have the tools to beat Texas, right? Because Texas, let's be honest, is going to probably target, hey, Cam Scatabo, you're not going to beat us this game. They're going to really put the game on the shoulders of their quarterback and see if they can beat them through the air, right? Texas is not going to give up the big runs. And even if they do give up a couple of big runs, I don't know that Arizona State has the defense to stop what Texas wants to do on the ground. I think Texas has the offensive line to lean on Arizona State in a way that they just haven't been this year. So I'm not trying to be disrespectful, just looking at what Arizona State brings to the table. Cam Scatabo would start on 99% of the teams in the country, right? Dude is a baller. Dude rightfully got some Heisman votes. Like, he should have probably gotten more, one of the best runners in the country. But I don't think Arizona State is built in a way as a team that can beat Texas. Now, I could be sitting here 10 days from now and didn't see that coming. But as it stands right now, I think Texas is just built in such a way that Arizona State does not match up well. Texas is bigger on both fronts, and that's really where the game's going to be won and lost in this one, specifically because Arizona State loves to run the ball through Cam Scatabo.
Yeah, and something just looking at this team that's crazy, Cam Scatabo is actually their second leading receiver as well. So think about that. That guy does it all for this team, like over 2,000 yards total. It's that simple. If Texas stops him, the game's over. Like, Texas is going to win the football game. Unless this guy goes for 150 plus yards total and 1 or 2 touchdowns, I don't really think Arizona State has a shot in this game. And it's just no offense to them. When you go back to the talent thing, I was curious. I just looked it up. Clemson is 5th in talent composite ranking. Texas is 4th. There was one difference. And that was the line of scrimmage. That's the thing, too. Like, the composite can tell you a little bit. But to me, when you look at teams, because Texas for the longest time had always a top 10 talent composite, but you looked at the lines of scrimmage, you're like, that's not really a top 10 talent composite when you look at the lines of scrimmage. So you got to look at that first. And Clemson does it. They have it on the offensive line more than their defensive line. They really only have one guy along the defensive line that's good at stopping the run. Everyone else is pretty bad at it. And then Arizona State is 30th. So they're not even in the same realm of talent there. So it's going to be very interesting. Like I said, I like Sam Leavitt. He's thrown for a 63.2 completion percentage, 24 touchdowns, 5 interceptions, 8.8 yards per attempt. He's a good player. He is the second best quarterback we will face this year. I'm very confident saying that. People, you can debate Carson Beck. To me, what I've watched and what the stats tell me, I think Sam Leavitt at right now is a better college quarterback than Carson Beck is. I'm not saying draft prospect. I'm not saying anything like that, but just college quarterback.
I mean, the touchdown interception ratios tell the story for me, right? One of them has 5 interceptions. One of them has, I think, twice that this season, right? And that's Sam Leavitt, right? Sam Leavitt only has 5 interceptions. He plays within the offense. He does what they need. And I think that's going to be the X factor is he able to find Scatabo in space in the passing game? Do they take advantage of Texas's natural aggression and throw some screens, do some misdirection, run some draws? Because I have nightmares about the OU game from last year, where Texas gets too far upfield and they run quarterback draw all day, or they run a delayed running back draw. Like, those things to me are the X factors to watch, because that's a way to take away the advantage that Texas has in the trenches, is to, again, let them run past the runner and get after it. So Sam Levitt is a baller. Like, there's no two ways around it. But again, he's missing his key target, and I think Texas has a distinct advantage in the trenches. I'm just curious to see what Pete Kwiatkowski draws up, because that you give the man 2 weeks to prepare, and he's going to find a way to shut down what you want to do best. So, like, it's going to be an interesting chess match to watch. But yeah, I think I agree with you. Sam Levitt is, as it stands right now, the second best quarterback Texas. There's like the spectrum. I think like Diego Pavia and Cade Klubnik are like on the two ends of the spectrum of very similar styles. They're going to create room with their feet. They're going to push the ball downfield. And I think like those are the two, like the far two ends of the spectrum. And Sam Levitt's probably right in the middle of those two as far as talent that we've seen thus far.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think they're going to have many quarterback design runs for him, but he's going to be able to play, make plays off script. And if he does want to run, he can. He's pretty athletic. Yeah. But you're not going to have 10, 12 plays designed for him to run the football here. But I mean, they'll probably have a little bit more than they should because they know this is do or die. So you're probably going to get an extra just 2 to 3 just based on the nature of the football game.
Yeah, I mean, he's their second leading rusher, so like you got to respect.
Yeah, 100%. And Xavier Gilroy, I forget how I pronounce the last name, but he was really good or impressed me. I watched the Big 12 championship game. He had a couple touchdowns in that game, and he has stepped up in Jordan Tyson's absence. So that's definitely someone you have to respect there. It's going to be interesting. Listen, Malik Muhammad, they watch the same thing we watched. They are going to target you, period. When you are left one-on-one, they will pursue that option on the outside. And will you be able to step up? Now, do I think this guy's as good as Clemson's wide receivers? No, but he's still a good player. Like, if we're ranking wide receivers that Texas has faced, he's probably in the top 7 or 8, honestly. Like, this guy will play in the NFL from what I've seen, and there's not many guys we've played so far that are going to play in the NFL. Like, the only guys that come to mind, and I can't even say the Kentucky guys because they had no quarterback. Like, the quarterback was terrible. Brock Vandagriff was so bad in that game. So guys that had a somewhat good a quarterback, first game, I forget the wide receiver for Colorado State's name, but he's going to play in the NFL. Yeah. You have a couple guys from Georgia, which I think I would take this guy over every guy other than Bell from Georgia, honestly, because they cannot catch other than Bell. And then you have the Clemson guys. Like, he's in the top 10 for sure. So I think he'll get some yardage. The key here is just stopping those down the field shots.
Yeah, I mean, if you can keep – again, that's one thing that in the past, and I said this in our last preview, and I'm kind of eating my words now. Generally speaking, Pete Kwiatkowski teams do not give up big chunk plays. They did against Clemson, and I'm sure they're going to spend 2 weeks diagramming that and see why it happens. But ultimately, they're going to want to keep the top on the defense. They're going to want the safeties to play over top. They're going to eliminate these miscommunications that we saw. Like, if there's one, I've never seen. That's probably been the most impressive thing from the Texas defense and from Texas overall since Steve Sarkisian took over. I guess maybe is that like they don't make the same mistakes week after week. They may make different mistakes, but they're not going to. The miscommunication issues from the Clemson game are not going to crop themselves up in the Arizona State game. They just won't, because that's not how this team is built. They're going to correct them. Now, again, Arizona State may find another weakness to exploit them in a different way, but those same issues aren't going to crop up in multiple games. So I anticipate the top being a little tighter on the defense.
Yeah, I agree. And I would say we have to preach of rallying to the football. We already do that anyways, but I would say 50% of the time, Cam Scatterbo, if you're going one-on-one, is going to win that. Like, that dude's huge. He's athletic. So you definitely have to pursue him with a lot of people when he does touch the football. But I'm not too worried about that. Texas has been doing that very well. It's going to be interesting how they decide to start off this game. Do they start out with a light box and basically say, Arizona State, prove to us that you can run the football? Or do they immediately say, let's stack the box and make you throw over top of us? It's going to be interesting which way they decide early on in this game. I personally would start out with the light box and see if their offensive line can get any push versus our defensive line. That's what I would do. It's going to be interesting how they decide that. Now, jumping over to the other side of the ball, what I noticed just looking at this Arizona State team, it's a really weird defense. So they rank top 30 in like yards per play, rushing and passing, but they're terrible at third down. They're 92nd in third down percentage allowed. They're 122nd in sack percentage. So they don't get after the quarterback very well. And the red zone scoring is 76. So in those key areas, they're bad, but yards per play and everything, they're in the top 30. So I don't even know how like those two play together. It's like, so you're really good on a per play yards basis, but then in key areas, you're bad. I don't understand what happens there. I don't know if they get out executed very well in those certain instances. I'm kind of confused by that, honestly.
Yeah. And there is the Big 12 was such a weird league this year. It was very much a coin flip league. So I think there's some of that there as well. Like obviously they won the Big 12, but like the average line in the Big 12 was like 3.5, and I don't know if anybody covered on a consistent basis. So like there's something to be said about just playing weird games and those coming out on the right side of those things. You know, the defense is only giving up, you look at college football data as one of the places I look for my advanced stat. They're only giving up like 3 line yards per rush, which is good, right? You want to go 3 or less on that stat. They're stuffing opponents on almost 20% of rushes. So like they're a solid front, and this is going to sound how it's going to sound. They haven't played an offensive line like Texas. They haven't played a set of running back like Texas. So there needs to be some opponent adjustment, I think, to that. And I'm curious to see. This is the best team that they're going to probably have faced this year. And that's no shot at Arizona State is the Big 12's representative in the college football playoff, right? Texas almost won the SEC, so that's just one of those things that you have to reconcile with. Is like Texas is probably going to be the best team that Arizona State faced this year. So I'm curious which one of those trends is going to hold up. If Arizona State is going to continue to only allow 3 yards per rush and stuff opponents on 3 line yards per rush and stuff opponents on 20% of the plays, or is Texas going to kind of lean on theirs, where Texas is closer to 3.2, 3.3 line yards per rush, and only getting stuff on like 15% of their plays? Like it's going to be an interesting trend to see which one breaks.
Yeah, it's weird. There, like you said, the competition has to matter there. And then you named all those stats which they're very good at. But then again, like, why are you bad in the red zone? Why are you bad at third down? That just doesn't make any sense. It doesn't compute in my head. Yeah, because if you look at all those other stats, people in that same area are probably not anywhere near in those stats as bad. So it doesn't make any sense to me. But also going to the point of offensive line, I think we have 3 tackles that will get drafted higher when they come out than any offensive line in the Big 12 right now. I don't think there's any offensive line in the Big 12 that no one's going as high as Kelvin Banks. No one will go as high as Cam Williams when he decides to come out. And I think Trevor Gooseby, honestly, with the year and putting on a little bit more healthy weight, I think he's going to go first round or second round. So it's just a big difference there.
Baker's are also waiting in the wings. That's another guy that might end up as a first or second rounder. So you might be onto something.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. There's a big talent disparity there, and that's the one thing. The Big 12 actually has wide receivers, running backs, and quarterbacks that are pretty similar to the SEC and Big 10. The difference is in line play. They do not produce offensive or defensive linemen. They just don't. You don't get freaks like a Jalen Walker, a Michael Williams, a Colin Simmons. Those guys don't come to the Big 12. So I think you're going to see that in this game, and I'm just going to give a sneak peek on what I will predict next week when we do predict the game. I think this is going to look a lot like the Big 12 championship game of last year. I think that's exactly what it's going to look like. I think think about what Oklahoma State was. Decent quarterback that could run the ball very well, and they were decent on defense. What the hell's the difference between Arizona State and last year's Oklahoma State team?
A good question. I don't really know. Arizona, Chuba Hubbard and Cam Scatterbo. Like, there's a very 1-to-1 situation there. So I don't know. There's not much of a difference.
No, I don't think there's that much difference, and I'll just give that sneak peek of what I do predict this game, what I'm going to predict. But I'm excited to watch this game because Kenny Dillingham could be the difference. He's a very good play caller, so I will say that, and it's going to be interesting. And I think you're going to see a lot like what Sark does, where you're going to see screens, you're going to see reverses, you're going to see stuff like that from Kenny Dillingham. And that was part of the game plan anyways, but I think he knows he's outmatched, so he's going to get more creative in this game.
And I think the way to maximize the talent of Cam Scatterbo and take out some of the ability of Texas in the interior is get him on the edges, right? Throw him a screen, throw him a quick out, throw him something in the flats. And no offense to most, like, any of the defenders on Texas's secondary, Jalen Gilbo right now, Jalen Gilbo and Jahdae Barron are probably the only 2 that I trust in a one-on-one open field situation. And I don't know if they win that 100% of the time, because that's a way that Cam Scatterbo can crack off a big play. Again, throw him a screen, throw him a quick little dump off in the flats, put him one-on-one with a cornerback, and I'm going to take the running back 9 times out of 10. It's just how football works.
I might take Andrew Makuba with the running head start.
Yeah, that's fair. He's going to try to take his head off. That's for sure.
Yeah. But I agree. One-on-one, if you're just flat-footed, I don't like that matchup. And hopefully, I don't think we'll be schemed up that way, so we see that very often. But that is the Arizona State look ahead. Again, next week, we will break down the game a little bit further and predict the game. So again, guys, please hit that like button. Please subscribe down below.